Hi, welcome back. This is part 3 of making the Tucana costume. When we left it last time, we'd got the fronts together and the zip in, and I've added these little flaps which are for changing the zip out in the future if we need to, because it's going to be heavily rhinestoned. I've stitched them on, but I haven't hand sewn them down yet, just because I need to get in there to fix the boning in place in the front. So I won't do those, stitch those down until the end. I've also sewn just another boning channel up the middle of the panel. And in this video I'm going to show you how I join all the other panels. This is a slightly different way of constructing the corset than I've shown you before. So what I need to do is undo my zip. The bottom of the centre front will be joined, but I've left it open for now just because it's easier to work on it in 2 halves rather than one piece. So that will be done last. I'm going to take one of my halves, and then I've got my 2 side front pieces that I need to join to it. Now these ones are trickiest because of the shape of the bust. But what I do is, so I'm going to take one piece and pin it on with lining my edges up. This is the strongest method of construction for corsets. When I've done the ones in the past with the open, where I open each seam out, that gives the flattest method of construction. So there's different ways you can do it depending on your needs. I'm going to do it this way just because it's nice and strong. So now I've got that pinned on right sides together to the front, I'm going to stitch my seam allowance, which is 1/2 inch. So that's it stitched on. Now I'm going to flip it to the inside of the corset and pin the lining piece on and do exactly the same again. This is how it looks with both of those sides sewn on. So we've got the front sandwiched between the 2 side front panels. Next, I'm just going to trim down some of the excess fabric and clip my curves. Next, I need to top stitch the side front panels back away from the front panel. So to do this, I'm taking my corset upside down, so with the inside facing upwards, leaving the side front panel on the outside facing towards the front, and I'm going to open up the side front panel, the inside side front panel, away from the front and just top stitch it. Being careful not to catch the outside side front panel as I do it. So that's how it's looking with the inside side front panel stitched backwards. Now I'm going to flip it over and do exactly the same on the front, and this will be going through all of the layers and will secure both of my side front panels going backwards. So now on the outside you've got your line of top stitching holding it back, and on the inside you end up with 2 lines of top stitching. Next I'm going to sew a line of stitching to make a boning channel next to this line of stitching here. This is how it looks after I've done that stitching. So this is on the outside. You can see we've got that seam sewn backwards and the boning channel there. The next thing I'm going to do is tack along here. I'm just going to pin it and make sure it's sitting nice and smooth first. So I'm just tacking all of my layers together at the edge again, like we did at the front. Now that's tacked, I'm just going to mark where I want my boning in the middle of the panel and stitch 2 lines of stitching to make that boning channel. And you can put some pins down it to hold all your layers together if you need to, especially where you've got the curve of the bust. Sometimes that can really help. Because it's cotton, it's quite easy to sew. You definitely need a lot more pins if you're sewing a slippery fabric. Okay, I'm just going to sew 2 lines of stitching to create my boning channel. So here is the side front panel tacked together and with all my boning channels sewn in. So now all I'm going to do is repeat that process for the rest of the panels, and then I'll be back to show you how to do the centre back. I've got both halves of the corset all joined. Now I need to join the centre backs. So I'm going to put them on the right sides together with the outsides. And I'm just going to pin the outside layers and stitch the centre backs together. And I'm going to do 2 lines of stitching just for extra strength. Once I've done that, I'm going to press it open. If you're doing a lace up back, you can go and see my previous videos on corsets and corset bodies, and I show you how I finish the back to put eyelets in ready for lacing. But yeah, because this one we're doing it just as a zip to get those lovely points at the back, I just need to join my centre back seams. My outside centre back seam is stitched and pressed open. Now to do the lining is going to be a bit tricky, but I'm going to give it a go and see if it works. So I've kind of rolled up each half so I can pull the lining around it, and I'll pin that and double stitch it, and then hopefully I'll be able to pull all this through and turn it in the right way. So I'm going to sew it and see if it works, but I don't know if I will be able to get it through or not afterwards. So let's stitch it and see what happens. Okay, I've sewn it. I've only done a single line of stitching in case this doesn't work and I need to unpick it. So now I need to try and pull it all through that tiny little waist bit and in the right way. I don't know if this is going to work. I left the zip undone because I thought it might be easier to pull one side out and then the other. But hey, it worked! So that's our outside and the lining. So I just need to press the lining open now, and then I can join it together and stitch my last 2 boning channels down either side. So I'll press it open, stitch down the seam line so it lines up with the outside, and then stitch a boning channel either side of that centre back line. This is how my centre back looks. So I stitched right through all of the layers on the seam line and then stitched my 2 boning channels. I've also just tied it up around the edge and trimmed all around the bottom. I'm not going to join the centre front or the crotch just yet because it's going to be a lot easier to put that appliques and the rhinestones on with it flat rather than with those joined. So I'm going to leave that till the very end. So the next thing I need to do is bone it and do my bias binding. And I'm not going to film that because I've shown you before how I do the boning and how I do the bias binding. The only bit I'll show you is how I'm going to bone the zip to get it sitting nicely. And then I'll finish boning it and doing the bias binding off camera. You can go back to my old videos I've shown you in, I think it was the Flora dress, Jazida's first corset body that I made, and a few other videos that have got corsets in how I do my boning. So I'll link them in the description for you to go and watch if you do need instruction on how to bone and how to do bias binding. I'm using this 7mm plastic boning in the centre front. You can buy this in most fabric shops and craft stores, or I sell it on my website if you want to get a hold of some. Now to bone the zip, we only want to bone between where the zip pull is at the bottom, where that sort of lumpy bit starts there, and where the zip pull is going to come to at the top. So it only needs to be between here and here. And what this does, it stops this bit flapping out when the corset's tight, when it's zipped up. If you've ever seen zips, sometimes you see like this bit just really flares out. So I'm going to cut a piece of boning that long and slide it into my boning channel. I'll cut the other side as well so it's the same length. I'm not going to worry about taping or tipping the boning because I've got so many layers of fabric here. It's not going to wear through. It's a bit hard to get it pushed down to where you need it to. You might need some pliers there. Oh, there it goes, it's moving now. And you can see where when I pull it now, that flap over the zip stays really nicely and neatly over it. Once I've got it in the right spot, I'm just going to do a couple of hand stitches either end just to keep it there, and that's going to make sure our zip's really nice and hidden when it's zipped up. And then I'm just going to use the same plastic boning in the boning channel next to it as well. I don't need the strength of spiral steel here, but for everything from this boning channel backwards, that will all be spiral steel. There's no straight steel in this one at all. Cool. So I'll get the boning done. I'm going to hand stitch that down. That's our emergency zip change flap. And then I'll do my bias binding. Just thought I'd show you the zip zipped up before I stitch these bits down. So you can see how, like, even if I pull it, that zip's staying really nicely hidden by those bits of boning. It also means that because I've had to use a plastic zip in this for strength, that plastic zip is hidden by all of the cotton, which means there's no danger of just either melting it with the fire. So that's made that zip nice and fire safe. And then even if anything does get through, it's got the cotton on the inside, so nothing's going to touch her skin from that plastic. It's completely concealed within the cotton. That's it for the construction of the corset. And you're not seeing the finished corset right now because I was so excited to get on with the embellishments that I completely forgot to film it. You'll get to see the finished corset in the next part where I will be adding the coloured stripes to it. See you soon.